Now, first of all, most of you are looking at this title, and you're thinking, that is an extraordinarily arrogant thing to call a presentation. And you're absolutely right, it is. All I can say is bear with me, be patient, it'll make sense in a few minutes. Okay, I want to start with the story of this man. This is Brandon Mole. Brandon Mole grew up with one dream. He wanted to write fantasy novels. Okay, but his family, who loved him, knew this wasn't the best career field for him. It's hard to make money doing that. So they convinced him, you know, make that a dream, but maybe you should get a real job. So he did. He went to college, he got a degree in public relations, and he got a real, responsible American job. Or actually, he had it offered to him. It was the night before he accepted it. He had the contract in hand, and he was about to say yes. This would move him and his family to a different state, start him on a different path. However, that night before, he got this strange, unimaginable feeling, illogical feeling, that he had to turn down that job and pursue his dream to be a writer. So he did. He said no thanks, much to the chagrin of his family, his friends, and every other person who feels you have to make safe, predictable choices in life. Within a year, Brandon Mole published his first book, Fablehaven. Since that time, he has been on the New York Times bestseller list many times. He's sold millions of books, and he's done pretty well for himself. Now, he's not the only one with this story. Okay, this man, Steve Carell, was filling out law school applications before he thought, maybe I should try comedy for a little bit. Okay, this woman, Mary Kay, she sold mops door to door till she was in her 50s. And then she decided, maybe I want to start my own cosmetics company. Pejman Nazar sold rugs on the street until he was in his 40s. Now he's a successful venture capitalist. And this man, before becoming Han Solo and one of the biggest movie stars of all time, was a carpenter. Now, I'm going to throw my story up there with them, and please forgive my self-indulgence for doing this. I'd rather not tell you these personal things, but it's the best way I know how to get my message across. I was much like Brandon Mole. This is me as a kid. I just wanted to create stories. I wanted to write them, I wanted to draw them, I wanted to be in them. Much like Brandon Mole, I was also told, not by my family, who was very supportive, but by society, that you can't make money doing something like that. I still remember vividly the day in middle school where they sat me down and they said, you know, you really can't make money doing a creative thing, so you much better be, you know, something responsible like an accountant or a dentist or a newspaper editor. And I believed them. Okay, at that time I realized I can't make a job doing that, I can't have a family, so I better get a real job. And fast forward to college, I did. I graduated, I found a responsible American job, working in an office building, and I was tremendously blessed to have this job. This was a fantastic job, the company was amazing, I couldn't ask for better people to work for. But something was missing, I wasn't happy, okay, I wasn't fulfilled. I worked there for 5.5 years, and I would see quotes like this from Oliver Wendell Holmes. Many people die with their music still in them. And it would hurt, because I knew they were talking about me. So I eventually got to the point where I realized I need to change. Okay, my dream was to quit my job, to go write books, and then get a master's degree in English. Now, getting a master's degree in English is the equivalent of taking a vow of poverty, but without all the fun. All right? But I was willing to do it. I was ready to do it. Problem was, it wasn't just me that this decision would impact. It would impact my entire family. Okay, my wife, my 2 children. If it was just me as a bachelor, yeah, it's okay to do something like that, but I had to think of them as well. It was a very hard decision to make. I would see quotes like this at the time from Steve Jobs: have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become, everything else is secondary. Or this quote from T.E. Lawrence: in fact, you will find no shortage of quotes on the importance of following your dreams and flaunting convention. Okay, and it's not just quotes either. There's a lot of books on this subject, as well. In fact, there's an entire industry of books that will teach you need to follow your heart, and everything will just work out if you have the courage to do so. You see, the message they all have is pretty much like this. Most of us live here in the status quo, okay? But there are just a courageous few who can rise above that, who decide, I'm going to go after my passion, go after what I want. Did you know that a recent Gallup poll asked people, do you like your job? 70% of Americans don't like the job they work at, all right? Most of us are in that status quo. I didn't want to be one. I heard these stories and I thought, I've got to go for it. I've got to follow this dream. I wanted to be these dreamers, this courageous few who were able to have the courage to follow their dreams, and they kind of ascended to a higher life of satisfaction and fulfillment. So, I did it. I quit that job. I enrolled in the master's program at Weber State, and I went for it. Now, those first few months were exhilarating. I never felt so alive. You know, speaking of zombies, I felt like I had been a zombie for 5.5 years. And now I was waking up. Okay, life was just more vivid. I felt more alive than ever. It was fantastic. What's more, I found something else interesting. I would talk to people and tell them what I was doing, and so many of them would look at me with kind of a wistful glint in their eye and say, I always wanted to do that. And these are rich executives telling me this, okay, in their 40s and their 50s, who have all the money in the world, and they would tell me they envied me. It was amazing. To these people, I would say something like, well, why don't you? And their answer was inevitably something along the lines of, well, I just bought a boat. I can't really afford to do that right now, which was very telling to me. Anyways, I started on book 1, and I treated it like a full-time job. I would leave in the morning, go out for 8 hours, and just write. Come home exhausted, but happy and fulfilled. I did book 1 in about 4 months. It was the hardest I'd ever worked to that point. And then I finally finished, and I felt this tremendous sense of accomplishment. I'd finally done one of my lifelong dreams. I took a break before sending this out to publishers, and then 2 weeks later I came back, I reread my story before I sent it out. Now, it wasn't that book 1 was bad, it was that it was so bad, even I didn't understand what was going on in it. And I wrote it. Okay, not a good sign as an author. Okay, it was a very difficult time. For those of you who haven't written a book, let me give you a quick allegory to help you feel what it's like. Imagine working at your current job right now for an entire year without getting paid. And at the end of the year, your boss comes in and says, sorry, I don't like anything you've done, and then he punches you in the stomach and leaves the room. Only instead of one boss, you have 12 bosses, and each gets to punch you in the stomach before they leave. That is pretty close to what writing a book is like. But as the story goes, as this narrative plays out, you can't give up. If it's your dream, you have to work for it. Even though I failed, you have to keep trying. Samuel Johnson said this. Great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance. So, I persevered. I started book 2. Now, book 2, it flowed in a way I didn't think possible. Everything came together. It felt great. I knew the mistakes I had made. I realized I had been naive, maybe a little arrogant, to think I could master literature in one try. But now I knew how to do it. Okay, book 2 came really, really easily, and I loved the process. We were running out of savings at this time. We didn't exactly have money coming in very much. And I was starting to feel a little pressure. But after a year, I finished it. I finished the book, felt great. And then I reread it. And now the good news is it's better than book 1. The bad news is not by much. So book 2, also a fail. Now, it was a little discouraging because, when I started this writing adventure, I had no delusions of grandeur. I did not expect to be a J.K. Rowling. I didn't expect to be a millionaire. I thought if I could make $10,000 a year to supplement the other jobs where I was working, I would have been ecstatic. So to see that I couldn't even get that it was very hard. It was difficult. But again, you don't give up. If it's your dream, you have to keep trying. As Napoleon Hill says, effort will only release its reward after you refuse to quit. So then came book 3. Book 3 was different. I could feel something was different about this one. At that time, Kickstarter, a web page, was gaining in popularity. And if you haven't heard of Kickstarter, basically a creative person or an inventor can go up, put their project on there, and they can get funding from the public. Okay, it's a crowdfunding website. I heard success stories of people just like me who wanted to write a book, they self-published it, put it on Kickstarter, and they got a great start, some good support. And I thought, why not? This feels right, I need to do this. So I did. I did all the illustrations for that book myself. I taught myself digital art. I did my own advertising campaign. I hired a computer programmer to help me set up a web page. That's not it. I hired a videographer. He made a video for me on Kickstarter. I started a campaign. Many people in this audience I hit up to help me out with this book. And thank you for that. I even had reporters come and talk to me, put me in the paper. Now my goal with the Kickstarter campaign was to raise about $3,000 in 30 days. I hit $4,000 within 3 days, and things were amazing. Finally, after all this work I had done, it was coming true. This was my inspirational moment. This chart shows what those book sales were like. I went from 0 a day to about 2 or 3, then it went to 5 to 10, 20 to 40, up to 70. And again, it was amazing. Okay, my inspirational story was coming true. Except it didn't. Okay, this next chart will show you what the next year of book sales looked like. Okay, I learned 2 things from this experience. Number 1, I have extraordinarily generous friends and family, very supportive people around me. Number 2, no one buys self-published books. It was a hard lesson, but I did learn that. So book 3, also a failure. I would spend the next year dealing with severe mental fatigue and minor depression. Sorry, I can laugh about it now. Now here's the deal. You are all waiting for the inspirational moment to come. You're waiting for the happy ending. Because anytime you hear a story like mine, that's what we get. We've learned to expect that. I have to tell you, I'm sorry, I do not have an inspirational story for you. I do not have a happy ending to this story. I'm now on book 6, and I'm still tired all the time. So I want to go back to that title. I'm going to amend that for you slightly to this. I am a failed inspirational story. There you go. Honestly, you shouldn't be clapping at that. That's not a good thing. Now, I tell you this intensely painful personal story because I feel it's important. We don't hear this side of the story enough. We never hear it. Okay? You see, this chart right here is misleading. Obviously, there are far more groups than these 2 right here. For instance, there's this group. I'm going to call these the failures. These are the people who triumphantly rose above the status quo, were on their way to their dream, they could even taste it, and then they face planted. Now, you'll notice about the failures, there's a lot more of them than there are the dreamers. But you don't hear our stories very much. Okay, our stories do not go viral on Facebook. Disney will not make movies about us, and most kids grow up not knowing that we exist. That's why I'm telling you this story, because I feel this narrative needs to be rounded out a little bit more. We need to hear this story as well. So, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I have no happy ending for you. There's nothing in my story that will be inspirational. Except maybe this. I have a failed inspirational story, and things are still great. Really, this is a realization I came to not long ago. Despite everything I've been through, my life is amazing. I still get to spend my days doing the stuff I love. There's three main reasons I still love my life. In fact, if I went back and I could make that decision all over again, knowing what I know now, I would still do what I did. For 3 main reasons. Number 1, money does not equal happiness. Now, we all say we know this, we all say we believe it. Most of us don't actually practice it, though. Okay, let me give you another stat. Another Gallup's poll found that 67% of Americans don't include money in their definition of success. Now, there's a disconnect here. Nearly 70% of people say money doesn't equal happiness, yet 70% of people hate their jobs. What's going on? Do we really believe this? I make half as much money as I used to back in the office job, but my quality of life is significantly higher. Okay, I love my life. Monday is still my favorite day of the week because I get to go work, and it's immensely fulfilling. Maybe a better question we could ask each other, instead of how much do you make at your job, would be, how much do you enjoy your job? Isn't that a much better thing to ask someone? Reason number 2, the fear of failure is often worse than the failure itself. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. Obviously, getting eaten by a bear is worse than the fear of getting eaten by a bear, right? But for the most part, this isn't the type of thing we worry about. We worry about things like, what will people think? What if I sound dumb or look dumb? What will complete strangers think about what I have to say? These are not good things to worry about because they keep us from doing the things we really want to do. Now, as a self-appointed ambassador for the failure group, I can tell you this, it's not that bad. It's really not. Okay, I failed. There's actually a kind of a satisfaction that comes from it because we no longer have to worry about failing. We know he did it. There's a lot of pressure off you at that point, okay? So again, failure isn't that bad. In fact, it's 10 times better than having never tried originally. Reason number 3, experience. Now, here's a quote by Emerson, life is about the journey, not the destination. And you've probably heard this before. I used to hate this quote because I thought it was ridiculous. Now that I've been through all this stuff, I can see there's actually some very profound wisdom in this, okay? When I made that decision to follow my passion, I was put on a path. Now you can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it karma, cosmic indifference, whatever you want to call it. I was put on a path where I experienced things, where I met people, I saw things that I never could have experienced any other way. Now, as a society, we tend to stay away from things like difficulty, pain, struggle, but I feel we're missing out on something very crucial here, because those are the very things that help us grow. It's hard to grow if you don't encounter those things. So where are we? Here I am, standing in front of you, giving a TED Talk on failure. Again, that's one other thing that never would have happened to me if I hadn't made that decision to go follow my passion. And here's the thing. My story's not over yet. I may still have that miracle happen to me. I may still have that fantastic moment that we always hear about. But what's great is, even if it never does, I'm okay with that. Because my life is so much richer for having tried. And that's the idea I would like to leave with you tonight. It's better to fail at things you love than succeed at what you don't really care about. Sometimes failure itself can be our greatest success. And that was said by me. Thank you.